Unit 5, Lesson 9, Traversals, Explore. At the conclusion of this, you'll be able to use appropriate vocabulary to describe traversals. You should understand how to use a loop to traverse a list, and you should be able to trace simple programs with loop traversals. First, a quick review. A list is a collection of organized items. Everything in the list should somehow be associated in some way. So here we have lunch food, nachos, pizza, soup, stir fry. Okay, they're all in our little baggies, which are our containers, and each container is numbered with an index. So var lunch food is set to nachos, pizza, soup, and stir fry. Notice the strings are each in quotes, and every item in the list is encased in the brackets. Now, lists can contain different types of data, including numbers and strings. So here is scores, and this contains the numbers 3, 5, 10, and 7. Now for our Traversals Explore, you should have a few baggies, scissors, a few sticky notes, pen, pencil, and your traversal machine. Your traversal machine is a document that you can print out from either code.org or Canvas, Unit 5, Lesson 9. It looks like this, okay? Now, on a scrap piece of paper or a sticky note, write down the following list. Var temps, 77, 85, 89, 65. You're creating a list with these 4 numbers. They will have the indices 0, 1, 2, and 3. Now, what if I want to know if a value is in a list? Well, in class with a partner or in class, we'll discuss the method that you would use to look for an item in a list. If I'm just looking at it and it's written down, I would simply scan through the list. I would start and I would say, is it 77, 85, 89, or 65? Essentially, that's what you're going to do with the computer. Computers are really good at checking things one by one. To do this, let's use a for loop. I is set to 0. I is less than 4, because remember our last index is 3. The length of our list is 4. And we want to just check every single item, so we're going to go up by 1. That's the I++. Now, we're going to get ready. Take a moment, pause your video, and set up your traversal machine. You've got this piece of paper, and what you're going to do is you're going to cut your slit right up here so that you can pull A up and down. You've got I, zeros, 1, 2, and you're going to cut out this little spot and this little spot, okay? So cut this out, this machine. Notice you've got your slit here that you need to cut, and then a hole here and a hole here. This space is left because this is where you're going to use stickies or scrap pieces of paper to add code so that you can do the traversal. So now pause the video, create your traversal machine. All right, now this is the counter right here. This is the counter where we assign the starting value to the counter variable I. Usually we assign it to 0. What else starts with 0? The index of a list, okay? Now don't forget, in JavaScript, the index of a list starts at 0, but on your AP exam, okay, in pseudocode, the lists will start with a 1, which I'm not exactly sure why they did that, because it goes counter to any programming language I've ever used that always starts at 0, but the pseudocode starts at 1. JavaScript, Java, C++, they all start at 0. So you got to kind of be able to keep that in mind. And again, here's that note. This next part right here, and this is supposed to be I less than list.length. For whatever reason, the TH came down here and I can't make it come back up. So I added the TH here. I might have missed that in some of the cases later, but this is a Boolean expression that is checked to see if the loop should continue to run. When working with a list, we want to access every element in the list, so we are going to keep the loop going until we have hit list.length. Once you get to the end of the list, you stop, and the I++ goes up by 1. Note, remember that list.length evaluates to the length of a list, which will be different than the last index number. For example, if a list of 3, in a list of 3, the length is 3 and the indexes are 0, 1, and 2. Now, you're going to do this. You're going to replace list with the name of your list. In this case, we would replace it with temps. Okay? And unfortunately, the S got down here. Don't know why, but so this is going to be var I is set to 0, I less than temp dot length, and again, notice your th is down here. Var element is set to temps, and you've got your bracket around your I. Okay? We haven't added any code yet. Now, the counter variable I increases after each loop runs. So that way, you go through it and you go to the first one, the second one, the third one, etc. Now, to access each element in the list, we're going to store the element in a variable inside the loop. Let's try this out with your traversal machine. Okay? Do this, set up a variable baggie, and give it the name element. Okay, so var element is set to temps sub I. This is called sub I because I want the ith element in temps. Notice this is inside a loop. So var element is set to temps sub I. Now don't write this on your paper. Use it on a sticky note. Now, pull the index sheet up to assign I to 0. Notice how the variable in the baggie has changed. Each time the loop is executed, the variable I increases by 1. Okay, so var element is set to temps sub 0. What is in location 0 in your list? Now, here, notice that var element is set to temps sub 0. I is 0. That's why this is a 0 here. Look at the list below. Okay, right now, you should see that I is set to 0. So this is I. Evaluate the statement in the for loop to see what value is stored in the variable element. Well, what is in location 0? 77. So element will have the value 77 placed into it. Now, if it goes around again, you're going to pull, okay, you'll pull it up. So now you have temps sub 1. I is 1, so you've got temps sub 1. What is in location 1? 85. So now element is, instead of 77, it now has 85. Remember, it throws the 77 away. Temps sub 2, again, it goes to index 2, takes the 89. It throws what was in element before, which was 85. It throws that away, and now it's got 88. Or 89. My bad, sorry, 89. Pull it again, and I is 3. I is 3 is less than the length of your string. So now element is going to get what's in temp sub 3, which is 65. So it goes here. Now, in the rest of this for loop, you could do something with element. You could add it to a total. You could check it to see if it was a particular value. Do a lot of different things with it. Here, we're just traversing, going through the list one at a time. Now, we get all the way up to I is 4. You pulled your traversal machine one more time, and I is 4. You're not going to go into the loop because I is 4, which is not less than temps.length. Okay, so what happens next? You exit the loop. You don't do what's inside. You go to the next executable piece of code outside of the loop. Are you starting to see a pattern? We are able to access each item in a list by using a for loop. This is called traversal. We are traveling or traversing through a list one element at a time. Okay, here, var I is set to 0, I is set to temps.length, and oops, we'll do our little TH, and there's a little S on the end there, the temps, okay, and I know you can't see it, it's right there, it's the less than, okay. I plus plus, we're going to set element equal to temps sub I. And then we have this piece of code. You want to do this. Look for a number in the temps list. So if I'm looking for the number 85, okay, if I set element to the value of temps sub I, okay, then if element is equal to 85, in the console.log, I'm going to put element found at index plus, and I'm going to tell you what index it is. Else, I'm going to say it's not here. So write down the code to the left on a sticky note and then put it inside your loop so we can go through this. Okay, then we're going to run the loop until it's finished. Your console can be a scrap piece of paper. When done, okay, compare your console with another group or hang on to it for a moment and I'll show you what it should look like. So go ahead and run through, and what should you see in the console log? Okay. If you ran it, my console, remember at the bottom when you're running this, should say not here, element found at index 1, not here, not here. Notice that 85 could appear multiple times in my list, in which case you would find out exactly what indices it was found at. Okay. So you would set temp sub I equal to the value. You would compare element to 85. If it was here, you would say where it was found. Otherwise, you would say it's not here. Then down here, you would come back up. You would increment I, check I, and then continue through the list or exit the list. When you exit the list, I is 4. Now, do this. I want to find the smallest number in my list. I'm going to reduce the list to the smallest number. We are going to leave the baggies behind now. You can use a scrap piece of paper to store the global variable var min. Temps is set to 0. Okay, and then we're going to run the program. Update the variable min as needed. Okay, so when you're looking at this, if you're going to have I is set to 0, so if you want to traverse this, you're going to have I is set to 0, and then temps.length we know is 4, so it's going to be as I less than 4, I plus plus. Element is set to temps sub I. Okay, well, you're going to set temps to I, then you're going to check, is element less than min? Well, min, what was min? Min was whatever the original was, okay? So you're going to check it against this, and you're going to go all the way through and update as necessary. So if we go through and, oops, up here, hang on a minute, I'm going to move it so that I can fix, I'm sorry. So var elements is set to temps sub 4. It's not going to go to the 4th element. There's not a 4th element there. The smallest number is 65. Okay. Now, essentially up here, you would need to have something that was called var min, and you would want this set to temps sub 0. Okay. And you'd want to do that because you'd want to grab this first element. And then really you could start this guy at 1 and go through the rest of the list because the item in location 0 might be the smallest. It wasn't. It was actually the item in the last. Now, let's make it a little more challenging. Let's update the code inside the loop to now find the largest number, max. You're going to create a new list of 8 random numbers. Doesn't matter what they are. Run your traversal machine to find the largest number in the list by asking for each number one at a time. Before beginning, store the global variable on a scrap piece of paper. Var max is set to temps sub 0. Remember I said you want to always, you're going to take, you've got this list, you're going to put the first item, which is at location 0, into your max. Then you're going to evaluate the statement to find the value stored in max. And if we're in class, I would ask you to do this with a partner. Okay. Pause the video and work through that exercise. Now, do this. I have a list of animals from which I want to filter some elements and store them in another list. So the setup. Again, if we're in class, we're going to do this with partners. When we're not in class, you'll have to do this and sort of do on your own. So one person will create a list of 8 random animal names and store it in a list animals on a scrap piece of paper. Keep this list hidden. The other partner uses a separate scrap of paper to track a new list called Animals List A. So, and you can do this, you can be both partners if you want. Essentially, var animals, write your own var animals list A is set to. Change the name of the list in the loop, in the for loop of the traversal machine to animals. Copy the code to the right on a sticky note and place it inside the traversal machine. So essentially, your animals list over here could be something like cat, dog, and these should all be in double quotes. Okay. Horse, cow, lion, anteater, and so on, right? So now, if element substring 0, 1, this means the very first letter. Okay, so if the first letter is an A, you're going to append it to list animals A. So you've got your list animals A, and it has nothing in it at first. And you're going to append it. So does cat start with an A? No. Dog, horse, cow, lion, anteater does. So when you're all done, you would have anteater. Okay? And notice you would have console.log added anteater plus list. Else, nothing to see here. So you're going to go through, and anteater is going to be the only thing that's going to wind up in your list, unless you have nothing that started with an A. Now, how does it go? Run through this, okay? So you're going to start at 0. I is less than animals dot length, I plus plus. Var element is set to animals sub I. Then you're going to check element dot substring 0, 1. This right here is asking about the first letter. Is it an A? If it is, you're going to append animal. You're going to put this animal, okay, whatever's an element, into list animal sub A. So it will go at the end. And then you're going to add in the console log, it'll say added, whatever the name of the animal is, and then the list. Okay, plus the word list. Else, console log, nothing to see here. So you're going to have, if you have 10 animals and only one starts with an A, you're going to see nothing to see here 9 times in the console log, and you're going to see where you added the 1. Okay. You could always change this from an A to a C or D and find other animals. Now, key takeaway. We use a for loop to traverse a list, visiting each element one at a time. We want to check it for something. We want to add it to another list. We maybe want to remove it from the list. We want to find the largest, the smallest, something like that. Each pass through the loop, the counting variable changes, usually by 1, because usually we want to check every single item, not every other one or every third one. We can access each element by evaluating list sub I in the for loop. Once we know the element at each spot in the list, we can do different things with it. We can filter it. We can create a subset of elements from the original list. We can reduce the list down to a single element. For example, the smallest number in the list. You could just, if it's not the smallest number, you could remove it from the list until you have nothing but the smallest left. Now, as a wrap up, we're going to watch the power of data. This is a video, and you want to watch this video. This video, the link to it is from encode.org as well as in the Canvas course, either one. So you're going to watch this video after you finish watching this lesson. Traversal, the process of accessing each item in a list one at a time. That's what traversal means. Now, go watch the video and then on to investigating traversals.